Alrighty, welcome to Wednesday Night Musical Osmosis, where intelligent dissonant thought meets melodic euphonious reality. I am your musically magnanimous host, Nicholas Saucy One Cat Source, broadcasting to you live from the shadow of Hurricane Mountain, Tennessee. And I also want to introduce my percussively proficient co-host, calling in from Charm City, Maryland, my pal, Odell Norman. Odell, what's up?
What's going on, man?
Nothing. I figured it was time to change up the intro since we've been back a couple episodes.
I like it.
Right on, and hiding in the background, as always, is the person that makes sure nothing goes wrong or covers it up when it does go wrong, Dee, the producer.
Yes, I am. Bronchitis and all. All good.
Yeah, you've been really sick this past week. You've been a trooper. Anyways, Dee, who do we have on the show today? Actually, who do we have coming up first in the next couple musical osmosis shows?
Well, the next couple episodes of Musical Osmosis, we have Mario Como of the Orwells coming, and the week before we got Wilmer's Park with a few friends, and I guess that's it for the rest of the year for Musical Osmosis.
Well, we might do a Christmas show in December, and we're going to have JR from Next Step Up and Jason from Misery Index and do a tribute to Wilmer's Park next month, too.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, and like I got a couple comments back, like, hey, please don't tell us what's coming on every show because you guys have so much content now. But I do want to real quick let everybody know, comedian Gary Veeder from America's Got Talent was supposed to be on this Sunday on Kettle of Fish. He's leaving for his honeymoon Sunday, so he's actually coming on tomorrow. And I was able to last minute, get our pal Classy Lauren Brenner, comedian Classy Laurie Brenner, on for Sunday. So we're actually going to have 2 episodes of Kettle of Fish this week.
Very nice, yes.
Awesome. Odell, so I wrote this new intro, and Dee said that I didn't have to really distinguish that you were from Baltimore, that everybody knows what Charm City is. What do you think, being from Baltimore? Do you think everybody across the country is familiar with their nickname of Charm City?
I think so. Like I've gone to other areas and said, hey, I'm from Baltimore, and most people are like, oh, Charm City. Or they equate us to the Roller Girls, the Charm City Roller Girls, because they're super popular. So,
nice.
All
right.
Yeah.
I stand corrected then.
See?
Tonight,
Boom.
had a hard time picking out the intro music. Actually, I'm going to play 3 songs from this band, 1 from a previous band of Larry's and 2 from this band. Tonight, the band that started it all for me going down my punk rock road, Pegboy. Larry Damore from Pegboy is on. I could not be more excited. Actually, I brought the show back, and I said this last time on the show, that I actually brought this show back from the dead because we've been running so many different podcasts. I said if I can get Al Pist on from the Pist, and if I can get Larry from Pegboy on, I'll bring the show back. And everything worked out timing-wise, and I was able to get them back-to-back. So I am a happy little punk rocker. What say you, Odell?
I'm very happy. What can I say about Pegboy, man? That was sort of the start for me as well. I was in the punk rock, but I wasn't really into it. And then I started listening to them and Screeching Weasel and the Descendants, and it just something about what they were talking about resonated with me. So that's what really sort of put me over the top. And then there's just so much to them that a lot of people, I don't think, realize the history that they have and the influence that they've had on so many other bands. So it's
absolutely,
it's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, and of course, anytime we have a guest on, I like to set the Wayback Machine and tell people why we're having that guest on and why they're so important to me, just so they know I'm not arbitrarily picking bands out of a hat. Usually when I have guests on the show, they have some kind of significance. Kind of like when you get a tattoo, it has some kind of significance to you. And the thing with Pegboy is I was not familiar with punk rock, but I liked loud, aggressive music. So I didn't really like the Slayer type really dark type of metal music. I was just turned off by it. It just seemed a little silly to me, especially once you get to King Diamond sticking his tongue out with a big upside-down cross on his face. It just seemed hokey to me. You know, too hokey for me to even listen to. But I was into bands like Dio, I thought was good, and Iron Maiden and stuff. And those are a couple bands that I still listen to. But I was also into a lot of horrible glam metal bands because I just didn't know anything about punk rock. I thought punk rock was like The Clash and Sex Pistols. That's like the only punk I had ever heard. I just didn't come from an area when I lived in McKeesport. There wasn't a whole lot of punk rock there. Everybody listened to metal. So I was listening to a lot of like, I don't know if I had a Warrant album, but I definitely had like a lot of type of Poison, Motley Crue type stuff. And
we've all had that, dude. We've all had that. That's cool.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, I was into it, dude. I had the long mullet, like Billy Ray Cyrus, 12-foot mullet hair, and I had posters all over my walls that my dad, like, thought were girls at first, but he got disturbed when he found they were out there all, like, these androgynous-type dudes. And he was like, wait a second, are these guys? Even when I first saw that
They're
Look
getting
What the Cat
chicks.
Dragged In album.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, man, these chicks are hot. Like, I honestly thought they were girls until I was like, wait a second, those are dudes. So I get it, like, being from the older generation. My dad's from, like, he was born in the 40s and grew up in the 50s. I definitely get the pushback on that. But, like I said, I never heard of it. I moved back to Waldorf, Maryland in 94. Started hanging out with Pat a lot in 95, Pat Sheehan. Yes, that was an excellent year for all of us. A lot of fun. And Pat's like, hey, man, do you listen to any punk rock? And I told him what I listened to, and he held back his laughter because you could tell he just wanted to start bagging on me. And he's like, hey, check out this band. Tell me what you think. And the first thing he played was Strong Reaction by Pegboy. And it had so much soul and so much good vibes, and they weren't fucking wanking on the guitar. Like, it was so polar opposite of just the over-the-top, in-your-face glam metal, and I was more of a cash and carry guy, you know, jeans and a t-shirt, and and even though I had a mullet, I didn't wear makeup or anything crazy like that. I was just kind of like a street kid from McKeesport, Pennsylvania, like a really hardcore city. So this music spoke volumes to me, and he made a tape of it. For all you kids out there, all you millennials, a tape is what we used to listen to music on in the old days. And he made a tape of it for me right there. I'd listened to like 3 songs, and I was like, dude, this is me. I get this. I understand this. This is me. And he made me a tape, took the tape home. I was living in my dad's garage at the time. He actually had me locked out of the house. He had, like, downgraded me as close as he could to kicking me out of the house by keeping me in the garage. And I had all my, like, winger-type tapes, glam metal tapes. I took them and I threw them all in a box. I didn't throw them in the garbage, but I threw them in my closet, and I was like, screw this. I'm never listening to this garbage again. I'll sell these one day or whatever. And I never went back to it. Like, I was never really into metal again. Like, I still would kind of put Maiden in once in a while when I was in the mood, or Dio, like I said, or Queensryche, like bands like that I thought were really technically excellent. But as far as, like, all the glam metal garbage, I just couldn't do it, and it just was a whole new level. And I was like, this is what I've been looking for my whole life. This is the sound. And it has set me on my road to form even Steven, Government Cheese first, which we all know how that ended, and then even Steven and to do our thing. What do you think?
Hey, I know for me with Pegboy, I just remember the first time I heard them, I was with Ben Story, and I think Pat was there too, and he had it on me.
Do we have any stories from the 90s that doesn't involve Pat?
Right. And I remember listening to them, and I was like, I had listened to a few other bands, and I was like, who is this band? And Pat was like, this is Pegboy, and I was like, and he was like, do you remember Naked Ray Gun? And I was like, vaguely. I wasn't into him as much. He was like, oh, these are some of the guys from them, and this and that, and I was like, this stuff is really good, man. And
their singer used to mow this guy's lawn, and their aunt was a school guidance counselor. Like, Pat knew everything.
Oh, yeah.
This was before the internet.
Pat probably knows more about Pegboy than Pegboy knows about themselves. They might, Larry, we got Pat and Larry together in a room. He would probably look at Pat like, how did you know that? And, and why do you know that? But no, it was they were just that band, man, that it just clicked. And like from that point on, I mean, they were, and then sort of like you, but on the opposite, I started listening to them, and then I got into other bands which sort of experimented with a little more, and then so it was like Pegboy sort of started me off in that realm of starting to listen to other types of music too. So that was
right. And a party never went by where Pegboy. I mean, like I listen to the Pist all the time, but I wouldn't play them at a party where, especially we had a lot of females there who weren't into the punk thing. But Pegboy had such a universal sound that even if you weren't into punk, you could put it on and you would see like the girls like in the turtlenecks head bobbing. You know, like everybody got it. Like it could not, you could not help but be grabbed by that music and by Larry's voice, which I think was a huge component of why the band was successful.
Yeah.
All right, well now that we're done kissing his ass, let's get him on the line here. Larry, you with us?
Hey guys, how you doing? I want to know more about these girls in turtlenecks.
I'll have to send you all their Facebooks. I'm sure they're quite haggard now, seeing that was
because they certainly never came to any of our shows.
Right.
Well, before we start, Larry, I gotta ask you, why do you crush on the Cubs so much, man?
You know, it's funny. It's you notice that, huh?
I'm not. I love it, man. It was so funny just looking at all the different pictures, like like your face and put on Steve Bartman's head and all that.
I know. That's the thing. I'm a Southside guy, so I'm a true blue White Sox fan, and
there you go.
You know, all these friends and a couple of fans just started making up these memes and teasing me, so it just turned into this huge 3-week-long fire fest where we were all beating on each other for a few weeks. But turns out I got the last laugh because they got their ass beat once they got to the playoffs. So.
Oh my gosh, that was quick.
So now we can move on. We had fun with it and a ton of laughs, and you know, now we work towards next year, and I start teasing them again in the spring.
There you go.
Hey, Larry, I don't know if you remember this. You probably don't remember this, but I actually met you years ago. Pegboy played in D.C. at the 930 Club. I think it was like 97, 98. Cha-Cha L'Amour had just come out. And my buddy Pat Sheehan, leaks in every story. He's like, hey, man, there's a singer for Pegboy. We should go meet him. And I had never met anybody from a band I liked. I wasn't even playing music professionally yet. Well, not professionally, but playing it as a musician yet. And I came up to you, and I was a fucking total idiot fanboy. I was like, hello, Mr. Pegboy, sir. You changed my life. I love Pegboy, sir. And then Pat, I don't know if you remember this, you were a little bit bummed out because there wasn't maybe 20, 30 people there. And you're like, wow, I thought there'd be more people here in D.C. And Pat, of course, drunk and always obnoxious, was like, well, you know, maybe if you release an album more than every 3 years, you'd have a lot more people here. And you were kind of like, all right, nice meeting you, dude. And that was the end. I don't know if you remember that.
I got to be honest with you, Nick. I do not remember that. I do remember, you know, I remember we played at DC 930 Club several times, but I got to be honest with you, I don't remember that one.
Yeah, that was a great memory. I've got pictures from that night too. I need to upload them, and actually I got to scan them because they're in a photo album. It's that long ago, and actually put them up online. Right. But anyways, I want to talk to you about the Chicago sound first, because you know Odell actually had his bachelor party in Chicago, and every time I go to Chicago, I hear, like, when we're walking around the streets, and I try to make it out there about once a year because our kids' grandparents live in Indiana right across the border. And if I'm walking around Chicago, I hear Pegboy in my head. And just like a veil sounds like Richmond to me, you guys sound like Chicago. Not the scene there, but you sound like that city. What is it about Chicago that just produces that really street-level sound?
The Chicago sound that whole term kind of took on a life of its own. I mean, of course, Naked Raygun was known for the Chicago sound, and then, even people were saying Big Black was the Chicago sound. Now, those two bands are completely different from each other and don't sound anything alike. I guess by Chicago sound they mean, gritty, in-your-face guitars, and I guess Naked Raygun, to a degree, kind of put the melody in it. I think more than anything, it's that Chicago's pretty isolated in the middle of the country. So there were, they took some influences from the West Coast, took some influence from the East Coast, but still they were so isolated that they kind of developed their own sound. And it was a small enough music scene where a lot of the same players played in the different bands, a lot of the same different bands together at various times. So I think the influence comes, one, from being isolated, and two, from a lot of the musicians crossing over and playing in each other's bands, and also being friends. So, it's kind of an incestuous thing. It's kind of an incestuous sound just because we were so isolated.
Yeah,
Does that make any sense to you?
It makes absolute sense. I mean, you can definitely see there's a lot of unity there. Like, that vibe comes through, that's a city, much like D.C., with the whole Discord type of movement out there. You can tell there's a lot of unity.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's just an incredible thing, and that's why bands like Screeching Weasel and Pegboy and all that pocket of, and the Vindictos, like all those bands, you can tell where they're from, and you can tell that everybody is cool with everybody there.
Right. It's kind of funny that you mentioned Weasel and the Vindictives. There are really kind of two scenes that came out of Chicago. One was a little earlier, late, maybe 79 to like 85-ish. It was much more of a city scene, and there wasn't much really happening in the suburbs per se. And then around 84, 85-ish, some of the some bands started popping up in the suburbs, and that was Screeching Weasel would be one of them, certainly. And there was really kind of two scenes. So there was the city scene and the suburban punk rock scene, and Pegboy kind of was one of those bands that kind of crossed into both of those scenes. It was right at a time when both of those scenes were starting to come together. There was a place called McGregor out in the suburbs that actually, by about probably 87 or so, was probably one of the best places to play shows in Chicago. So, really it was two different scenes that kind of merged, and really that's when things really started taking off, because then at that point there were just tons and tons and tons of bands playing. Every weekend there were great shows happening.
So was that complete chaos back in those days? I mean, if I could just live in those moments that you lived in, that is just mind-bending to me.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And it was, I got to say, as a young punk rock kid growing up in Chicago, I mean, and I'm going back I'm quite a bit older than you guys. And if I go back to the early 80s, like a typical show coming through Chicago would be like Black Flag with the Descendants and Naked Reagan. That was one show. So I mean, it was like these multiple. Yeah, I mean, then you would the next week it would be the Big Boys, the Dicks, and Crucifix. So it was always like these great shows coming through town. I mean, I got to say, I'm like 51 years old now, and as far as the punk rock music in Chicago, I mean, I grew up right through the very best part of it. I'm happy to say that I saw probably every old school hardcore and punk rock band that existed back in the day, because that's what we did. We went to shows. That was my life revolved around going to shows at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like not being in that era with you, that just looking from the outside, that Chicago was probably a lot more accepting city of that sound than, say, Houston or Phoenix or somewhere like that. Like, I just get that vibe that even the average Joe on the street, you weren't getting raided.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, early on, obviously the jock kids wanted to beat up the punk kids, but any of the touring bands, from Black Flag to the Descendants to Circle Jerks, if you were starting in California or DC, let's say Minor Threat, everybody had to cross the country, and Chicago was just a natural stop for every one of these bands to stop on their way, on tour. And it was a big city, so they could get decent crowds, and it was, like I said, everybody came through here when they were touring.
Yeah,
I know. How did you get into punk music, if you don't mind me asking, and what were your influences, I guess?
A lot. My story is a lot like your guys that I was listening to before you guys brought me on. I mean, I I graduated high school in 1982, and at that point I really hadn't really heard much punk rock, so I was a little late to the initial push of punk rock. But like I said, I had heard I liked the Clash,
Right.
that kind of stuff. That was major label stuff. The Sex Pistols, I had heard that, and I just by chance happened to be driving in my car. And I had to dial away on the left, and I tuned into some, it actually was Northwestern's college station. I could barely get it, and I heard, much like you guys talked about, my band, at the beginning of the show, I heard a Minor Threat song, and it was immediately something that just absolutely sucked me in and blew me away. I mean, it was music that I could instantly relate it to, and the anger coming out of Ian's anger coming out of Ian's voice was just like tapped into my soul. And I knew the minute I heard that song that punk rock was going to change my life forever. I mean, literally.
Well, let me dig in here then, because you listen to a lot of punk bands, and this is something I think is synonymous with Chicago, with some of the bands at least, the ones I listen to. And the Pist is a very different band. Like I said, the Pist and you guys, especially lyrically, because I'm a lyric-driven guy more than an actual music. And you're a very different kind of writer. Your music is very soulful. The lyrics are very personal. Why, in a political climate like the 80s and 90s, were you not writing political music, especially like Bhopal's Stiffs? I've been listening to a lot of those, you guys then, and there was some political change there.
There's a little political in there, right? There is a little political in Bhopal Stiffs, but I mean the stuff when I ever sat down, I mean I went through, I guess like a lot of punk rock kids. I hate to say it, but I went through when I was 20, 22, 19 years old. I was going through a pretty depressed time of my life. And, of course, politics, I was down on politics because of punk rock. I mean, punk rock made me a lot more politically aware. But what really moved me when I was sitting down to write a song was personal stuff, stuff that I was going through and stuff that was bringing me down and stuff that so it just felt natural for me to write about stuff that I could feel directly rather than, and like I said, I was political as well, but the stuff that really moved me to write was like personal stuff. And I think, I guess back then they even, I think the first before emo, they were calling it emo core, and it was
emo
bands
core,
that were singing.
Yeah.
It was bands that were singing with their hearts on their sleeves, and we got I guess not pigeonholed, but I mean that tag was something that people threw on us quite a bit back then.
Well, when you're traveling around the country and you're going to areas, especially an area like D.C. where we're from, that's politically charged, are you getting pushback from the fans? Like, why are you singing these soulful type of melodies instead of singing some fuck the government type stuff?
Not really. I mean, at the time, even at the time that my old Bhopal band was, Reagan, everybody was dogging on Reagan. Reagan was out of office by then. Really, the climate of punk rock wasn't so political. I mean, that's, bands like, speaking of D.C., bands like Rites of Spring were coming out then and had nothing to do with politics, really.
They were like emo. You talking about the emo, right? Rites of Spring was like
and going back to those days, the late 80s, that band, I heard that record, that record blew me away, and that was nothing but about personal stuff. So punk rock started taking a little less of a political vein and started becoming, there was a lot more happening on a personal level, so there really was no pushback. There really was no pushback with us at all.
Awesome. Odell?
Didn't you? I know I was looking at some of your past stuff, and like Jay Robbins and a few other guys, didn't they play with you guys? Or
after we put out our first record, Strong Reaction was our first full-length record after we'd had an EP and a full-length record. We went to Europe and toured for a couple of months there. Came back, and then we got an offer to go on tour with Social Distortion for a couple of months.
Wow.
so our bass player at that point was told that if he was to take another tour, he was going to lose his job. He was a union guy. He was kind of trained, and back then it was impossible to make any money in a punk rock band. It just wasn't happening. So he chose to stick with work, which kind of left us. We either had to cancel the tour or find a new bass player. And Jay's been a friend of ours for many, many years, back to the government issue days.
Okay.
So we basically just called Jay and asked him if he wanted to jump on a tour with us, and he was down, way down for it, and that's how it happened. He warmed up for a couple of weeks and then flew to Chicago and jumped in the van with us and went on tour with us for a couple months.
Oh,
wow.
Nice.
When you're meeting people on the road, and I mean, I can't be the first person to tell you that album, especially Strong Reaction, changed the direction of my life. When you hear that from fans, are you kind of like mission accomplished, or were you never in it to change people's lives? Were you just in it for the expression?
You know what? You're in it for the expression. You know, I mean, you don't think. Well, here, let me tell you. I'll tell you a quick story. We were playing. We were on a tour, and we were playing a show in San Francisco. So originally, when you get in a band, you do it just because you love music and you want to be part of it. We had just finished playing a show in San Francisco, and this kid just out of the blue, it's probably our second tour, out of the blue, came up to me, and he goes, you know what, I'm not going to bug you too long, but I just want to tell you, he goes, you wouldn't believe, like, my home life. He's like, my dad's a drunk. He beats me up every day. He's like, I feel like I want to commit suicide almost every day. He's like,
wow.
For the hour I was watching you guys, and he looked at me and he said, you guys absolutely made me forget all of my problems for the hour I was here.
Wow.
That so blew me away. I mean, it almost brought tears to my eyes. And at that point, you know, you realize, like, wow, some people, you really, really, really making an impact on some people. And that's when you realize that that's what you really do it for. Because, I mean, there's no better tribute than for some kid that you don't even know really to come up and tell you that. It just absolutely blew me away.
So does that take the music to a different level? Or are you like, wow, now I've got this responsibility, I'm in it for this now? Does that change the dynamic of it?
No, it really doesn't change the dynamic, but it changes the way it changes the way you look at what you do, and it gives you a little glimpse of the fact that to some people it's really more important than just, you know, the enjoyment of it. It means something to people, and that's the best payoff you could ever get.
Absolutely. We're at the 30-minute mark. I am going to play a quick Paul Stiff song because I've got to play you guys the clash of the heavy driving music with your voice makes this a perfect mixture. Pat actually told me, hey, if you're into Pegboy, you know, if you're having Larry on, check out Paul Stiff. And of course, Pat, you know, got me into listening to it recently, last few weeks, and I'm just blown away. So let me play Human Race by Paul Stiff. Yeah, your voice really gives another dimension to that drive-in beat of that song. I think that, I mean, it's just incredible. I'm just blown away by it.
Oh, thanks. That was a little scratchy on the vocals, but yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So let's talk about Paul Stiffs. Are you guys having any plans to reunite and play any shows? I think you guys reformed, or not reformed, but did some reunion shows in 2009, right?
Yeah, we did. We did a couple of reunion shows. I don't know when. I don't even remember the date we did the first one. That was just a regular one, and then the guys from Riot Fest a few years back called us and asked us if we would do a reunion on that one, and we did it. It was a little shaky. Our old drummer lives in Denver now, so it's it would be pretty tough to make that happen again, to be honest with you. You never say never, but at this point there's no plans to do it.
And,
all right.
And Pegboy played Riot Fest too, right?
We did. You know what? We did. We played it a couple times years ago. I mean, we never. I got to be honest with you. We're one of the bands. I think, you know, if I'm gonna. This sounds so cheesy, but if I'm gonna stick onto my punk rock credentials, I mean, I always felt like punk rock is not the type of music that should be played in festivals and be made a mainstream thing of. So we never have really seeked out trying to do the Riot Fest thing. I think punk rock really stands against a lot of what the whole festival crowd stands for. Punk rock is to be played late night, drunk in a dark bar, as far as I'm concerned. Plus you're straight edge, but still needs to be late night in a dark bar.
That's interesting, though. Is it because you feel like punk is just so pure that it shouldn't be bastardized by playing in a festival?
I agree. I 100% agree. I mean,
I'm down with that.
Punk rock music changed my life, and to whore it out with sponsorship and and putting it onto the guys of just making money for people putting it on, it's a little bit of a turn off to me. But they do their thing. I don't knock any of the bands that play it, but and we have played it, so I don't I don't want to sound like a total hypocrite, but whatever. It is what it is.
I've got to ask you this because it's been almost 20 years since Cha Cha L'Amour. You guys Pegboy's still playing, but you haven't been putting out any music. How come? I mean, you're just not feeling the writing, or what's going on with that?
We haven't been, and you're exactly right. We haven't been feeling the writing, but we just pretty much talked about it maybe a month ago. We thought we were probably going to do another record.
Awesome.
But we thought, like, if we start now, it's going to be a year before a record actually comes to be, because we don't want to really slap anything together. We're gonna see what happens. If we're gonna write some songs, if they suck, you'll never hear them. If we think they're good, and we think it's worth putting out, we'll put it out. That's pretty much all I can tell you.
Is it going to be a huge leap in writing style, do you feel like? Because you have matured, you have so much experience?
No, you know what? I don't think so. We've always said, we said in 1991 when we got together, and we said it again in 1995, and we said it again in 1998. We only know how to do one thing. We know how to write punk rock. So we do what we do, and hopefully it sounds different enough where people like it. But we're not gonna, you're not gonna see me coming out and doing any ballads or opuses. You know what I mean?
Wiping the sweat off my head. Odell, I think we've got a call. Do we have a call coming in, D? From Chicago?
Oh, boy. Probably a friend who's going to bust our balls.
Thank you. Yes, you have a message on Facebook explaining.
Okay, well, let me get Dave in here from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to read the message first? Dave, what's up?
Hey, what's going on, you guys?
Hey.
Nothing. Did you have a question for Larry, or is this just a friendly call?
It's a friendly call. I just wanted to say the last show at the Chop Shack was killer, man. It was like, I'm 37 now. It was like I was 18 again, and I just want to thank the guys for doing just a great show and for all the work they've done throughout the years, and we love them, being my friends, and they're just great.
Dave,
Did you get turned
that.
on?
I appreciate that.
There you go,
I'll put a little spin on that. That we every year during Riot Fest, probably the last 4 years, we have been playing Chicago shows, just because we know there's people from out of town that may want to come see us. That Chop Shop show happened a few weeks back during Riot Fest. It was a new venue, and the show really, really went off really well, and we had a ball. And
that's great.
It's great that guys like Dave came out and had so much fun. It did feel like old times. The crowd was crazy, and I felt young again too.
Nice. Dave, did you get turned on to Pegboy recently, or have you been listening to him pretty much since day one?
Well, pretty much since the mid-'90s. I wish since day one, but yeah, man, they've just been great. And I actually listened to them before Naked Ray Gun. That got me started on that whole thing. But but
I'm the same boat with you, Dave.
The whole Fireside thing, I used to play there too, and it was just great seeing them again. They're really unbelievable.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. Appreciate
nice.
it.
Thanks for calling in,
man.
Dave. We appreciate your call.
All right.
Thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
Okay, doing my research for the show, I found out some little tidbits here that you are an avid fisherman. You make your own furniture.
Yes.
And the whole time I'm reading all this, I'm like, holy shit, Larry
You have
is
your
like,
own rod.
He's like Nick Offerman, the Nick Offerman of fucking punk rock, reading through all this.
He's a Renaissance man. He builds sheds and transforms, has his own fly fishing rods. And
yeah, that's awesome. That's another. You got to follow your passions. I mean, we did for any punk rock fisherman who might be listening, there's a friend of ours did a documentary about the contrast of our punk rock lives with our fly fishing lives. It's called Reverb.
Reverb, yes.
You can find it online, and it's really, really it's really a good documentary about us and fishing. So if you're into the fishing thing, look it up, have a look at it. It's really a cool documentary.
Cool.
But yeah,
I'm gonna have to check that
fishing
out.
keeps me sane.
Yeah, we all need something to stabilize us. We all need that quiet, happy place, right?
Definitely, and that's really what the whole documentary is about: the chaos of the punk rock and then the serenity of the fishing. It's really cool.
Serenity now.
All right.
So let's kind of go in another direction here. Odell, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah.
Before I hop into this next subject.
How did you guys get on Touch and Go Records? I know, when I saw Touch and Go Records, it was like for a lot of punk bands get on a punk label. Like when you see Lookout Records and all the bands that are on Lookout because they sort of sound similar.
Yeah, right.
Touch and Go is so diverse, and which is really cool. I love it because from Brainiac to you guys, Beautiful Before.
Yes.
The
my God, I haven't
list
thought
goes
about
on.
that band in years. Brainiac.
Yeah.
Again, I go back to the incestuous music scene here. I mean, Touch and Go is obviously an old Chicago label from day one. So a lot of our friends were either in bands on the label, or in this case, our friend Corey was the owner of the label. So naturally, when we had some product to shop around, we shopped it to Touch and Go, and they jumped on it right away. I think, and actually, it's Touch and Go Quarter Stick. So Quarter Stick at the time was a new label that Corey was starting on the side, and I think the first two bands on there were us and Rollins Band. So the intention was that Quarter Stick was going to be a little more on the, not so avant-garde. I'm not sure it ever worked out that way, but yeah, we're glad what we did. And Corey, like Discord Records in DC, Corey was always straight up with the bands, and all the money was split 50-50 right down the middle, and there was no record label bullshit going on. So it was a good match for us.
And that's cool because that's how Discord was for our area. A lot of people equate Discord to Fugazi and Minor Threatening. You're like, there's some other bands way on the other end of that spectrum that you're like, oh, they're on Discord too. Wow. And they say the same thing, so it's really cool.
Exactly, and I think throughout the years, Ian and Corey from Touch and Go had very similar business models and were very good friends. So
Right.
both of those labels are basically carved out of the same ethics,
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
Okay, in the last few minutes, I really want to talk about the fans and how the scene has changed. Looking back at, let's say, the 90s and the scene and the fans and looking at today, does it feel watered down to you, or do you feel like you're still getting that same energy out of the kids that come out?
It is watered down. I mean, I'm going to even take it a little bit before the 90s. I mean, in the 80s, it was a very small scene, and it was a scene derived of people that didn't really fit into the mainstream. Then the music got popular. In the 90s, there really was a nice push of, there were a lot of good punk rock bands touring, but not quite yet onto the major label end of it. And then when the punk rock in the 90s hit the mainstream, of course, it brought, millions of other kids into it. So, I mean, you can look now, you go into a bar, you can see a kid with, complete sleeve tattoos, and he's really he's really anything but punk rock. And then you can see a kid with an eyes-on shirt, who's really got the punk rock attitude. So it's watered down in the respect that you can't really judge a book by its cover anymore. I mean, punk rock has become a lot more of a style now than a anti-establishment movement, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it is a little watered down, but yet, some of the shows are, there's still a lot of great energy to it, and a lot of the shows are still great. I think it would do punk rock well to actually have a direction that was a little bit something more than just the music. But that'll come. When the time's right, it'll come back.
Well, you've been doing this for over 30 years. I mean, you've been out there pounding the pavement. When you see that it's watered down like this, is it hard to keep up that same energy and passion level, or is this just an automatic reflex at this point?
Well, just the simple fact that you do anything for 30 years, it's a little harder to keep the energy. I still believe in the idea that countercultures pop up when the timing's right. I hopefully it's through punk rock again, but I mean, again, it would be nice to see some kind of a political movement. I mean, Lord knows this country's falling apart, so the kids.
Amen to that.
The kids got every reason to stand up and try to make something happen again. I just don't see it happening yet, but that's not to say it's not going to happen.
Are you into any newer music? Or are you still, I don't know if there's been a new band I've been turned on to in the last maybe year or so. I mean, I've kind of drifted out of even checking out new music.
I got to agree with you there. I mean, I would love, and maybe I don't dig as hard as I used to when I was younger, but I want so much to some band come along that just is going to blow me away. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's maybe just because I'm old and jaded now. A lot of this stuff sounds like rehashes, or a lot of bands sound like other bands now. I just want so much for a band to come along and blow me away. It'll happen. I hope.
Is the scene a victim of technology? I mean, just so much inundated with YouTube and Kindles, and you could just Google anything anywhere. Is it just too much for anything to actually stand out at this point?
It could be. It could be, or it could be just that there's so much that it's hard to find the stuff that you love anymore. You have to weed through. So everybody has a platform now, and there are so many bands with SoundCloud and all the other sites like that. There's just so much to weed through. But you would think that a friend would give you something, or somebody would give you something. Somebody needs to start doing something from the heart again, and not just trying to catch.
Could not agree more. I'm sorry, Adele. Go ahead. You had something.
No, I was just saying that, and it may not even come from around here. It could be some kid in some, hard up foreign country somewhere. That's
Uganda.
Anywhere, right.
You know what? And they're just like, this is what it is, and this is how we feel. And
exactly.
And it's just like, whoa,
and that's actually the good thing, about how wide open music is now. Maybe it is going to come from some little town in, Ljubljana, Czechoslovakia or something like that the new sound will come out, something will blow you away. I hope so. It will. I mean, I don't hope so. It will happen.
Are you guys getting out of Chicago much to actually kind of see the terrain and check out the scene, or are you playing pretty much exclusively in the area?
We did. We mostly just play around here. We broke out for a few weeks about a year ago with Face to Face. Did some shows with them on the East Coast, and there's been some talk. There's been some talk about us maybe going on a tour again. But nothing's in stone yet. I would love to go out before I'm too old. Like I said, I'm 51, so if it doesn't happen soon, it gets harder to climb into the loft in the van when you're 51 every day. So, but we want to do it. We want to do it. We miss it. I mean, some of the best times of my life were on tour, so I would love to do it again. And it probably will happen. It's just a matter of when.
That's how I got Face to Face was because of you guys, because of the sound. Yeah. Like when I first heard Face to Face, I was like, oh my gosh, they sound just like Pegboy, or they're very similar. They just, even to the singer, even the singer, I'm like, wow, you know. And I remember the first time I heard them, I was like, is this Pegboy? And they were like, yeah, this is Face to Face. I was like, oh, okay, I have to check them out. And
it turns out they actually reached out to us to go on that tour, so they are fans of ours, and they're huge fans of the old Naked Ray Gun stuff. So that's how that actually came together. They invited us to go out with them.
Do you feel like the Naked Ray Gun sound bleeds into Pegboy, especially in those early years? Is it impossible to escape? Or are you open? Was he open to that?
I think because of the situation, and because a bass player and our guitar player John Haggerty, did time in Naked Ray Gun for so long, we will forever be married to Naked Ray Gun on some level. But as far as the sound, there's a little melody in there. It's melodic. I think our music's a little heavier. Theirs is a little poppier. They got a few more whoa, whoa, whoas. My voice isn't that good, so there are no whoa, whoas. But it's just a fact that the two bands forever will be closely tied.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
nothing wrong. Not at all. And it seems like I was watching. I'm a big Dave Grohl fan, so the whole Sonic Highway series, and the fact that the first one he did was Chicago, and how he threw a Naked Ray Gun show, and that changed his life.
Yep, I was at that show.
Oh, cool.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. There is so much history with you guys. Like Adele said in the beginning of the show, I don't think people realize the history that you guys have and how much you've had your fingers in everything as far as influence.
Right. I mean, and it's nice to hear like the new bands like Rise Against and Alkaline Trio, and it's nice to hear those guys. After we pounded away for 30 years and never really, we opened the doors for people, but never really made any money at it. We did it because we loved it, and it's nice after all these years to get kudos from those bands, and for them to say that we were big influences on what they do today. So, that's the payoff.
And those are the kids that you were talking about earlier that you were mentioning the one kid that came up to you and you're like, man, you really changed my life. Those are the kids. Those are the kids that were there and they were like, you know what, this is what I want to do. And this is how I feel.
Right. And it's humbling. It's humbling, and it makes you realize that everything that you did, hey, right now I'm broke and I'm I should have maybe gone to college and done the corporate thing, but what makes it all worthwhile is that you did have impact on these kids.
Yeah, definitely had an impact on me and on my music, so we're all out there.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah,
we always like to wrap up the show with your favorite road story. What is your absolute craziest, over-the-top road story?
Oh, man. There's all kinds of over the top, but I think the one thing that I remember the most, we were coming from Calgary to Vancouver, and we were running late, and the sun was going down, and we were racing to get to Vancouver for a show, and it was started getting cold, and we were winding our way through the Canadian Rocky Mountains, when a logging truck in front of us started to jackknife on black ice. So Joe, our drummer, was driving at the time, hit the brakes, and we realized that we were on the black ice as well. we spun. I mean, we went into this mountain pass, spun probably 5, 6, or 8 times, and then drove off. I mean, we literally drove off of the Rocky Mountains.
Holy cow!
Down an embankment, and I could feel the van sliding sideways. And you know how you can feel like the force of the van. I just was feeling that the van was going to start to roll over, and we were going to roll down this hill. It just at that moment we hit this big boulder. It straightened us perfectly out right into a tree, and that was what kept us from probably all being dead right now.
Oh wow!
I thought there was going to be a moose in this story.
No, yeah, I wish there was, but I mean I could still, when I think about that, I still get the adrenaline rush like it happened yesterday. It was something that will always stick in mind.
Yes.
And I really thought, I was thinking in slow motion. I really thought that I would, somebody was going to die, and we all came through it, and we actually made it to the van. We threw our shit on a Greyhound bus and took it to Vancouver and played the show that next night.
There you go.
Van was total.
So no crazy fan stories then? No fans jumping up on stage and attacking you or anything like that?
Nah, there's some raunchy ones, but we won't get into it.
Fair enough. All righty. That is a great place to end. Larry, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been an absolute treat for us. Tell everybody where they can find you. Anything you're working on, any Facebook pages, where can we find you on your way out the door?
The Pegboy's got a Facebook page. We're too punk rock to even have a website, so we got the Facebook page, and hopefully by spring, you'll be hearing rumors of us having another record out.
Yes.
You got to come back. You got to come back on, then. You got to come back on.
We'll do. I had a blast, you guys.
Thanks, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
All righty, that was pretty awesome. Odell, did you get your Pegboy fix? Was it everything you hoped it would be?
I was seriously fanboying over here, dude. I was like, I had to get up. I was like walking around pacing.
So you wouldn't pee yourself?
Yeah,
you can be honest. All righty, guys. So coming up in a couple of weeks, we're going to do our Wilmer's Park tribute show. Jason's going to call in, formerly of Dying Fetus, now of Misery Index. Believe it or not, Jason is still playing shows and working on his doctorate. He's going to be a doctor in a couple of years. Of political science, as crazy as that is.
Oh my
goodness. Pushing mid-40s, and he is still in school and doing the band thing. I don't know where he gets the fucking energy level, to tell you the truth.
Hey. You know what? Good for him, man. Good for him. He'll be able to play a Misery Index show, and then you'll see him on, Face the Nation the next day.
He'll be able to sing songs about, evisceration as a doctor.
Yeah.
All these songs of mutilation and evisceration he'll be singing, but he'll have his doctorate to back it up. And we'll have JR on, too, from Next Step Up, and we're just going to regale people and all the old – and there is a lot of Wilmer's Park stories.
There's a lot of history to Wilmer's Park, so, if you just do a little bit of research, just the history from the Chitlin circuit, it's all the way to, what we did. Some amazing acts played there. It's an unbelievable place. That's all I can say right now. I don't think a lot of people realize the history of Wilmer's Park until you actually, hear us, coming from Charles County, you listening to older folks talk about Wilmer's Park. It's
encoded in our DNA at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my dad used to come over when he lived in Bowling Green, Virginia. They used to come over and go into Wilmer's Park, to see shows because that was the only area that had the black artists was at Wilmer's Park. So stuff like that. So it was amazing stuff.
And in the following week, we're going to have Mario Como from the Orwells.
Yeah.
That's going to be exciting. I have recently, the first episode back, I actually turned you on to the Orwells.
Yeah. Yep.
So this is coming full circle now for you.
Here we go.
And then you want to do a Christmas show in Christmas, so we'll put something together. We'll probably just do one show in December and do some kind of Christmas tribute show, maybe find a bunch of cool punk rock Christmas songs and get somebody to call in. But that's the tentative
that'll
plan.
Be fun. That'll be fun. We can get a lot of callers in on that, and we can see what we can come up with. That'll be good.
Well, since we're crotchety old men, it's almost bedtime. So let me play the song that started it all for me by Pegboy, Strong Reaction off the Strong Reaction album. We'll end with that. Good night, everybody. We'll see you. We'll be back November 11th, actually. We're going to take a week off between our bi-weekly shows, and we'll be back on November 11th.
All right, brother.
All righty.